2 weeks down, 1 week remains. This is Dolphins Post Game, Double Down Edition, as we wind down to the NFL playoffs in 2025 and get ready to say bye 2025 season and hello 2026. It's the Dolphins. It's the Bengals. It's the Dolphins' other matchup between the Buccaneers and the Miami Dolphins, and it's all covered on this edition of Dolphins Postgame. Let's go. Fins up.
Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fans' perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun.
Fins up indeed. Welcome everyone into Dolphin Postgame. It is a double edition of Dolphins Postgame. We've got two games to recap. One from the previous week and featured the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Miami Dolphins, who at the time were 6-10. We've got a playoff picture to get to. We've got game balls to get to. We've got a week to prepare for a wrap-up in week number 17. That coming up before the show is up. We'll take a look at Miami's Bengal matchup, and we'll take a look at the Buccaneer matchup before the show is up as well as who's next for the Buccaneers in the 2025-2026 NFL season finale of the regular season, and get you Dolphin fans set up for Dolphins Season in Review, available exclusively on Sports for Beginners this offseason. We're going to do a Dolphins Season in Review on Sports for Beginners, so be sure to stay tuned to the end of the show for that. But now to the matter of business. 2 weeks have gone by, and one game recap is what we're going to talk about right now before we take a first of the three breaks on the program. That featured the matchup on week 16 between the Miami Dolphins and the Cincinnati Bengals. That featured Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins in Tua taking on the Cincinnati Bengals and their head coach, of name I will reveal later, but Joe Burrow, if I'm not mistaken, was the quarterback against Tua. I'm forgetting. Tua was benched, but we'll talk about that on the Dolphins Season in Review. So a little bit of a sneak peek there for Dolphins Season in Review. We'll talk about that later. Joe Flacco also in this competition as the Dolphins quarterback of conversation would be a guy by the name of Quinn Ewers. I'll go with Quinn E. He got the start for the Miami Dolphins in a game of which the Dolphins fought hard but lost it 45-21 over the Cincinnati Bengals, who heading into the week that we're going to talk about next week between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Miami Dolphins, got to a record of 5-10. They were 5-10 heading into week 17. The Dolphins, thanks to the loss to the Cincinnati Bengals at 45-21, are 6-9 heading into week 17 of the NFL season, the second to final week of the season, which is currently in the midst of wrapping up with Monday Night Football tonight. But I know what we're really asking ourselves. Dude, get to the point. You have two recaps. Let's talk about the game. How did it get to where it was? Well, Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. Yeah, I mentioned him. T. Higgins get things started in the first half with a 9-yard touchdown pass for a 6-0 Bengals lead. The extra point off of Evan McPherson through the uprights, and good. Dolphins find themselves down 7. But wait, Is that Devon Achane? It is indeed Devon Achane going in for a 48-yard touchdown run, and the Dolphins have cut this lead from 7-0 to now even at 7-7 with a time of play on the game clock at 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Time of the touchdown, 2 minutes 35 seconds on the game clock. So after one quarter of play, we are tied at 7 Dolphins, 7 Bengals. Who they? Who they? Who they? Who they? They are the Cincinnati Bengals, if you ask who they. And they're tied at 7 going into the first quarter, second quarter of play, first half quarter before halftime. And after that, field goal by Evan McPherson for 45 yards out goes through and up on the uprights to make it 10-7 Bengals over the Dolphins. Washington goes for the run on 9 yards of a touchdown and takes it all the way to give the Dolphins a 4-point lead of 14-10 in favor of the Dolphins. Riley Patterson with the kick up and good, and the Dolphins have taken what was a 10-point lead for the Cincinnati Bengals, despite being tied at 7. I know it feels weird, but we really should say it was a 3-point lead because it was 7-7, and if you look at the field goal, that's only 3 points, so it was a 3-point game. They take a 3-point and go up 4 points. It's 14-10 in favor of the Dolphins. Later in the frame, SP goes up the middle for 4 yards of a touchdown, and picking up the 6, takes care of the 4 that the Dolphins had earlier. Bengals back in the lead, 16-14. Can they make the extra point with Evan McPherson to keep this lead in favor of the Cincinnati Bengals? Yes, they can. They'll take the extra point. At the half, the Bengals lead 17-14 to the Miami Dolphins. So the Miami Dolphins go up by 4, scoring 14 to the 10 that the Bengals had from a field goal off of Evan McPherson, which was 45 yards. And he nailed. Then you get Washington for a 9-yard touchdown. Riley Patterson kicks the extra point. 4-point lead for the Dolphins. 24 to go in the second quarter of the first half. SP goes up the middle for a 4-yard touchdown. Just a minute 28 to go. And they take that 4-point, score 6 points, get the extra point, which is the extra 1 point, and take a 4-point lead from the Dolphins to rather, I believe, a 4-point lead for the Bengals. If you do 17, take away 14, I believe that is a 4-point lead. No, it is a 3-point lead, so it is a field goal game heading into half against the Cincinnati Bengals with Miami on the ropes for the most part. We will take a timeout here on the Dolphins Post-Game Show to get a word in from our friends over at Broadcast Map and touch on the second half when Dolphin Postgame continues. We'll also take a look at the game stats from this game, the game balls to follow later from this game, but after we get to the game stats of Week 16, it's off to Week 7 with the Dolphins and the Buccaneers. So be sure to stick with us.
Hey everyone, it's Scott McGregor here. Join me weekly right here on Sports for Beginners for weekly episodes, your weekly dive in around sports news surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays, Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Raptors, and more. We'll have guests on a week-to-week basis and so much more. Lots of great conversations coming. Be sure to subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And with that, make sure to like our Facebook page, Sports for Beginners Podcast 87. Just type that into your browser, and you should be sure to find our Facebook page. We'll also provide bonus content. It's going to be a dull moment you'll never want to miss. Check out Sports for Beginners with me weekly for daily news around the sports league, surrounding my favorite sports teams and yours, and so much more. Until then, we'll see you at action time.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Hi, Scott. It's Ali here. I just wanted to mention that I'm really enjoying the show and I'm really enjoying what you're putting together. And I wanted to just say I'm enjoying being a part of it as well. So please keep up the phenomenal work and make sure you guys keep this podcast going because it really suits you well.
Cincinnati Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on Cincinnati Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on Cincinnati Radio.
All right, back here on Dolphin Post Game for Sports for Beginners and on the ice and behind the benches. It's a double dose. Game 2 coming your way in just minutes, but let's wrap this up. Once again, the final score, as we mentioned while we're breaking down this game, is in favor of the Bucs, 40-21. Well, actually, I should say it's in favor of the Bengals, the Buccaneer game, like I said, in minutes. But let's get this game wrapped up. When we last left you, Bengals and the Dolphins were in a field goal game at 17-14 in favor of the Cincinnati Bengals. 17-14 the score. Bengals lead by 3. Joe Burrow in the third quarter, pass short left to Brown for 9 yards. And the first play of the third quarter is all Cincinnati. Evan McPherson with the kick up and good, and the Bengals lead 24-14. It's a 10-point game with the Miami Dolphins now down by 10. Later in the frame, Brown for 12-yard touchdown run, and the Dolphins are down even bigger this time. Evan McPherson kicks the extra point up and good, and here we go. Things are getting very dire for the Dolphins. It's 31-14 Bengals. 31-14 the Bengals lead the Dolphins. And things are starting to get out of hand, folks. Oh boy, here we go. As the Dolphins find themselves deep in a hole. It's a 17-point lead for the Cincinnati Bengals. Next play, Joe Burrow on the ball, short right for 30 yards. Well, to 30, C. Brown. And this is 5-yard touchdown. Excuse me, not 30 yards. And the Dolphins' points just keep dwindling as now the lead has grew to 38-14 in favor of the Cincinnati Bengals. But did it? Did Evan McPherson miss this first ever extra point drive? If he does, yes, the Dolphins are still down, but it's 37-14 the score. He does not miss, so therefore it's a 15-point game as the Dolphins. Evan McPherson takes it up and good. At the end of the third quarter, which was basically all Cincinnati in terms of scoring. It's the Dolphins, 14, Bengals, 38. Last quarter of the second half is underway, and here we go. Joe Burrow with the ball to Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki, remember him, Dolphins fans? Of course you remember him. He was a great Dolphin guy that the Dolphins played with him. This one for 17 yards. Joe Burrow to Mike Gesicki, and Mike Gesicki in for the touchdown, 17-yard touchdown pass. Evan McPherson up and good. And the Bengals, ladies and gentlemen, are up 45-14. And that would be all that the Bengals would get, beating the Dolphins at the time before this touchdown that the Dolphins scored with 3:40 go in the fourth quarter of the second half. 31 points for the Bengals. The Dolphins are down by a 30.1 lead, a 31-point lead, I should say. And the Bengals have 45 compared to the 14 scored by the Dolphins. It's a 31-point lead for the Bengals. Seems like a pretty nice thing to sit on, right? Well, D Run Skill says, as he's reported as eligible, JW, please get a touchdown. Let's go. He says, all right, Run Skill, I got this. Goes to the end zone for a 3-yard touchdown. Riley Patterson with the extra point, up and good. And for the first time in the entire football game, since literally the first half, the Dolphins pick up points. It will be the only other points scored in this game as Riley Patterson and D. Brunskill, as well as J. I'm still pretty certain it's a big lead. They would fall 24 points short of a victory against the Cincinnati Bengals. 45 take away 21. That's a 24-point lead for the Bengals into a victory. That's a pretty good lead for the Bengals fans. You'll hear their finale opponent next week for Week 18 later in the program. But now to wrap this week's matchup up and get into the Bengals matchup for Week 17 that, of course, feature the Dolphins taking on the Buccaneers against Tampa Bay in Week 17. Let's talk about the stats. Let's go to our stats for Team Cincinnati and Team Miami Dolphins. I do want to remind fans to stay tuned to the end of this show for the Dolphin season and review notes to look forward to when this season does officially end. So time of possession. Ain't no one saw this one coming unless they knew they weren't going to take care of the Bengals this week. I'm not going to tell you how to fan, but this one probably was pretty much over before it started. The records you see, 5-10 Bengals versus 6-9 Dolphins. If they were playing next week in the second match, that would be their records. They weren't playing each other in Week 17, but those would be the records, subject to change, heading into the last week of the NFL season, regular season that is. 31-32, the time of the possession for the Cincinnati Bengals, 31 minutes, 32 seconds, compared to the Miami Dolphins, who had 28 minutes and 28 seconds time of possession as well. So clearly the better team was the Cincinnati Bengals in this one, having 23 first downs, 6 of them rushing, 16 of them were passing. And oh yeah, the Dolphins gave them an automatic first down penalty. I wonder what the penalty was for an automatic first down. Speaking of the Dolphins, they had 19 first downs in this game, 5 of them on the ground, 14 in the air, despite converting just 2 times out of 10 chances on third down and once out of 2 chances on fourth down. If you talk about fourth down completions, or rather conversions from Cincinnati, though, fourth down conversions, they went the first chance they got it and converted. They converted on the one chance they got 1-for-1 for them. Meanwhile, not so good on the third down, with 6 chances on third down, able to convert only 6 times. However, they had 12 more third down chances to convert. They're only able to convert 6 out of those times, despite total yarding the Dolphins of 407 yards to the Dolphins 389 yards. They made a total of 61 plays to a total of the Dolphin plays 58. Both teams, despite the different plays, averaged just 6.7 yards per gain, with 105 rushing yards on 26 rushing attempts, averaging just 4.0 yards a carry, 4.0 yards a carry. The Dolphins averaging just 28 rushes per carry and 129 rush yards, average 4.6 yards per carry. It was a little bit different with the passing yards, as the Bengals and Joe Burrow made 302 passing yards for a completion of attempts at 26 per 33, averaging just 8.6 yards per carry. Yards per pass. He and Joe Burrow both put together had 8.6 yards a carry in this yards per pass. If you look at Quinn E on the Dolphins side, the one that was doing it for the Dolphins, he made 260 passing yards, averaged just 20.30 completions. So he had 20 completion attempts to complete a pass, 20 complete out of 30 attempts, averaging just 8.7 yards per pass. Now, the Dolphins had 20 penalty yards for 3 penalties given. They managed to score 3 touchdowns, all of which were on the ground. The Bengals, well, we know the story. 6 touchdowns total, 2 of them on the ground, 4 of them in the air. No defensive touchdown for special teams. Miami recovered the ball twice, but also lost the ball once in fumbles. They turned the ball over 3 times in the game, despite throwing 2 interceptions and the other fumbles. So ultimately, there was 3 fumble chances the Dolphins had where Cincinnati either recovered it or let Miami regain it. And at this point, it took the 3rd fumble for the Dolphins to lose it. They recovered it twice. They could not recover a 3rd time. In terms of punt yards average, the Bengals had 4 of those punt average yards, averaging just 52. Averaging 50.3 yards was the Miami Dolphins for 4-yard punts. And speaking of punts, in terms of return yards, the Dolphins' return yards are 218, with 8 kickoff returns, totaling to 218 return yards off of 8 kickoffs. Every time the Bengals intercepted the Dolphins, 16 of those interception yards was gained on the 2 interceptions, despite their 4 kickoff returns going for 117 yards, and the punt yards that they got in return, 26 yards per the first punt given by the Dolphins that they had to return. Now, of course, we usually like to talk about red zone and goal to go efficiency. Let's stick to just what we know. In red zone, both teams seem to be really great in this game. 2 for 2 for the Dolphins, 6 for 6. The Bengals were in the red zone 6 times and they converted. Meanwhile, when it comes to goal to go efficiency, they were a parent 3 for 3. They converted 3 times on goal to go efficiency. And the Dolphins did the same. For their 1 chance, they converted, despite being a perfect 2 for 2 in the red zone. But the winner is the Bengals, and the loser is the Miami Dolphins. Now that we got that out of the way, let's shift gears and turn our attention to the 7-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the 6-9 Miami Dolphins. Let's turn our attention to them. Head coach Mike McDaniel is the head coach. Quinn E is the quarterback. This time, his opponent is none other than the legendary Baker Mayfield, and the legendary Baker Mayfield is led by Coach Todd Bowles, I should say, as he and the Bucs are hoping to contain themselves in playoff contention. They, I believe, heading into Week 17, were still a part of the playoff picture. And let's take a look at that playoff picture right now just to see where it's at before we break down game 2 with Todd Boyles and Mike McDaniels, Baker Mayfield, and Quinn E as the quarterbacks. So it is official. Denver has locked up the first round bye, and the only teams left to be in or out of the playoffs are between Baltimore and Pittsburgh in terms of the A. That will be a fun one. We'll talk about Week 18 in its fullest before the show is up. Speaking of that, Chicago, try as you might to get the first round bye, but Seattle has the answer. They are in the playoffs, not in the first round bye necessarily, but they are the number 1 seed. The Bears have clinched their division and they are in the playoffs, as has the defending Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, who, if the playoffs were to begin this week, they don't, but if they were, they would be taking on the LA Rams, who are also in the playoffs this year, as well as Aaron Rodgers' former team, the Green Bay Packers, who will take on the Chicago Bears. In Chicago, the Panthers will take on the Niners, meaning that almost everybody except Tampa Bay and Carolina has been eliminated from the playoffs. So it comes down to Carolina versus Tampa Bay. One is in the playoffs. The other, well, their season is over. That's going to be a fun one, as is many of them. Okay, speaking of Bengals, I should say Buccaneers and the Miami Dolphins, as that's our next edition to look at. It is a Club Dub Blues edition of the Dolphin Post Game as we talk about the double dose here. This is game 2, the last game that we'll work with before we talk about where the Dolphins and their opponents, the Buccaneers, and of course the Bengals from the last week, final opponents will be. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right down to game 2's breakdown and start things off in the first quarter with Baker Mayfield. We talked about him. He's the legendary, iconic Baker Mayfield, making a pass short to Chris Godwin for a 5-yard touchdown. And who else but their kicker to make the extra point? That's Chase McLaughlin. Chase McLaughlin with the extra point. 7-0. Dolphins are down by a touchdown again. Oh boy. Here we go. It is put up or shut up time, Dolphins fans. Here we go. Chase McLaughlin with a 7-0 Buccaneers point lead. But oh boy, we're just getting started as jumps in and handles this game in only he knows how with a 63-yard pass to T. Weiss or TW, and the Dolphins, again, just like the Bengals game, come back to tie it early. It's 7-7. Riley Patterson kicked up and good. And again, as we approach the second quarter of play, it is once again 7-7 after 1 quarter of play in the first half. Into the second quarter of the first half. And this time, it's the Dolphins. We're not messing around, they say. We're making sure that we know what's happening. Riley Patterson, 29-yard field goal, up and good. And it is a 10-7 Dolphin lead with 10 for the Dolphins and 7 for the Buccaneers. Later in the quarter, Quinn E to G. Dulek, GD, I'll go with GD, for an 11-yard touchdown. And Riley Patterson, once again, just like the 29-yard field goal. Kick is up and good. And the Dolphins are the ones riding high. 17-7 the score as we approach the second half and our second break of the program. When we come back, we will wrap up game 2 of the Dolphin post-game double dose between the Bucs Bengals and the team of this show's conversation, the Dolphins. But as we leave you to go into the second half, the Dolphins lead by a score to the Buccaneers, I should say. They lead by a score of 17-7. It's the Dolphins 17, the Buccaneers 7. It's a 10-point lead for the Dolphins at 17-7. The second half, plus game balls of the game and what has happened so far in week 17 with a little week 16 banter if we have time when Dolphin Post Game continues the second half of game 2 between the Buccaneers and the Dolphins. The 6-9 Dolphins versus the 7-8 Buccaneers. Second half next.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Hey, Pens fans. This is Scott McGregor, host of Sports for Beginners, On the Ice and Behind the Benches, and co-host of On the Ice and Behind the Benches, host of also Weekly in Sports, and many of the other programs on Sports for Beginners. Join me every week after select Penguins hockey games over the course of the week for Penguins Weekly Recap, a new kind of show airing weekly on Sports for Beginners. Next season, we wanted to try and do it this year, but we'll do it next season. That's Penguins Weekly Recap, coming soon to Sports for Beginners, the podcast. You won't want to miss it. See you there, Penguin fans.
I wonder if I could make it. It's almost getting to 8 o'clock p.m., and I am still a few more steps away from home to get to my computer to listen to Cincinnati Radio's Cosmopolitan Culture Club. The best of the best music from around the world. Can't wait. I think I made it. Cincinnati Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Hey everyone, it's Scott McGregor here. Join me weekly right here on Sports for Beginners for weekly episodes, your weekly dive in around sports news surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays, Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Raptors, and more. We'll have guests on a week-to-week basis, and so much more. Lots of great conversations coming. Be sure to subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And with that, make sure to like our Facebook page, Sports for Beginners Podcast 87. Just type that into your browser, and you should be sure to find our Facebook page. We'll also provide bonus content. It's going to be a dull moment you'll never want to miss. Check out Sports for Beginners with me weekly for daily news around the sports league, surrounding my favorite sports teams and yours, and so much more. Until then, we'll see you at action time.
All right, everybody, welcome back into Dolphin Post Game. I am your host, Thomas McGregor. If I didn't mention that early in the program, I welcome you in to a double dose of Dolphin Post Game. We just wrapped up the Cincinnati Bengals 45-21 victory over the Miami Dolphins, who at the time came to a record of 6-9 when they would face the 7-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not to a 5-10 Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, that's better because Cincinnati won. 6-9 Dolphins team would come up against Tampa Bay at 7-8. I believe that's the record because the record's now heading into Week 18, 7-9 for the Dolphins and 7-9 for the Buccaneers. How did they get to 7-9? Here we go with the second half. So as we mentioned before we broke into our second break of the program, Riley Patterson and Quinn E with GD go down the field to score a touchdown after Riley Patterson kicks a 29-yard field goal up and good through the uprights to make the Buccaneers go down by at least 7-10 the score. Then, of course, when the score is 7-10, Miami goes down the field, gets a touchdown, and the score going into half is 17 Dolphins, 7 Buccaneers. Let's dive in to the remaining pieces of the game. Chase McLaughlin back on the field. This time, the kick is for 33 yards. Is he going to nail it? Yes, he will. And a 10-point lead for the Dolphins coming out of half is now buried in a 17-10 field goal try from Chase McLaughlin as he's pushed the Bengals closer. It's now a 7-point lead for the Dolphins. Something is brewing, Dolphins fans. I don't like it. However, that would be the only thing the Dolphins would give the Buccaneers. I keep saying Bengals, probably because we're doing double. Anyways, you win some, you lose some on that one. After one quarter of play in the second half, it's 17-10 Buccaneers down by 7 to the Dolphins. So we move to the last quarter of play. This is where it's put up, or as many people will say, shut up, in a lot of the sports content that we would provide. So I apologize in advance if you don't want to hear that. Riley Patterson on for the Dolphins to kick a field goal from 31 yards out, kicks it up, and good. It's 31-yard field goal. And once again, we are at a 10-point game with a 20-10 Dolphins lead by 10. It's 20-10 in favor of the Miami Dolphins. Later in the quarter, much later in the quarter, that is, with only 54 seconds on the clock not on the Buccaneers side, but everyone knows that. Baker Mayfield pass short left to Mike Evans for a 4-yard touchdown, and the Bucs are going to get an inch closer with Chase McLaughlin kicking the ball up and through the uprights, but it's going to be only enough to get 17, as they will fall to the Dolphins, who are now 7-9 going into Week 18 by a score of 20-17. Dolphins with the win, despite the loss from last week against the Cincinnati Bengals in week number 16. So week 18 for the Bucs is a 7-9 Buccaneers team versus a 7 and maybe 9 record against whoever they're gonna take with Baker Mayfield against the most likely team the Carolina Panthers, or whoever the team may be. If you look at the playoff bracket here, we are going to touch on the bracket just a few times over the course of this show. We're going to touch on it a few times. Here's what I'm going to do before I get to the game stats of Game 2's game, though. I'm going to just remind you of where things are at. The Bills, as far as the AFC is concerned, are taking on right now the Patriots. That's right. If the playoffs were to start instead of week 18 in the regular season, this week, Bills at 11-5 would take on a 13-3 Patriots team. It would be the 11-5 Bills taking on the 13-3 Patriots. The Chargers at 11-5 would take on the 12-4, and the Steelers at 9-7 would take on the 11-5 Texans. But Thomas, you just told us when you talked about the AFC earlier, when we were talking about Cincinnati, that Baltimore and Pittsburgh are the only teams left without a clinch. So they'd not only be battling for the division, but they'd also be battling to stay in the playoffs. Are you telling us that if Pittsburgh was to beat the Ravens, they would be the Texans' opponent? No, I'm not saying that. However, I will dive into that before our show is up. So thank you for reminding me. The teams that are without that playoffs are the team we just covered, Cincinnati, who took on the eliminated Miami Dolphins, now 7-9, and of course, the Buccaneers are now in their division, which is part of the NFC, at 7-9. They are out, I believe. No, they are not out, but it does look like they could have been out. They are still alive. They have one more team left, and wouldn't you know it, it's a team who also has yet to clinch a playoff spot, the Carolina Panthers, who currently sit at 8-8. All right. Let's get to the playoff picture by talking about the game in stats formation. We already did it with Cincinnati. Let's do it with Tampa Bay. Let's do it with Tampa Bay now. Now, we all know the score, 20 for the Dolphins, 17 for the Bucs. Buccaneers probably were the better team to win this game, despite their possession being 32 minutes and 6 seconds. But we've seen in NFL games, especially the games I'm going to prepare you for as we get into our game balls, which is coming up in just minutes from now, as well as our brief look at week 17. We don't have time to look at all of them, but we will try our very best. We don't have time to look at the week 16 games, but that's okay. We'll do 17 anyway. The Dolphins, 27 minutes, 54 seconds time of possessions. Buccaneers had 21 first downs, 5 of them rushing, 13 of them passing, 2 of them automatic due to penalties by the Dolphins, who had 13 first downs in this one, 7 of them on the ground, 6 of them in the air. And speaking of those touchdown first downs for the Miami Dolphins and Quinn W., their team did not see fourth down in this game, but did convert 4 out of the 12 times they had on third down. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay converted 6 of the 13 third down conversions they had, but also was able to convert going for it on fourth down 2 times, netting a total yardage of 380 yards to Miami's 298 yards, making 63 plays to Miami's 54 plays that they made, averaging just 6 point yards a gain, while Miami averaged just 5.5 yards per gain and only rushed for 53 yards. Miami rushed 145 yards despite 30 rushes, averaging 4.8 yards per carry. And while we only had 16 rushes, averaging just 3.3 yards per carry for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their yardage comes from their passing game of 327 passing yards, 33.44 completions, so 33 completed passes out of 44 attempts for Baker Mayfield, averaging just 7 yards a carry to an average of 6.4 yards a carry, 14 out of 22 completed passes for Quinn E, I should say, who averaged just 153 passing yards with the Miami Dolphins. Now here's one for you. 10 penalties for the Dolphins. Final tally of those 10 penalties. 5 penalties, 45 yards given to the Buccaneers. Both teams, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 touchdowns each. Turnovers, Dolphins, none. Buccaneers, 3. Hey, that's what happened with Cincinnati, right? Dolphins turned the ball over 3 times, but Cincinnati did not even turn the ball over. You know what is interesting is the fact that, once again, Miami did not throw any interceptions. Tampa Bay threw 2 interceptions, so Baker Mayfield knows how this goes. His team recovered the ball twice, but lost the ball, and the Dolphins recovered that ball, did not lose another fumble. In terms of punt yards, 42.0 yards gained on the punt average of 3 punts for the Buccaneers. 5 of the punts for 40 gained from the Miami Dolphins. On average, return yards, 92 return yards for the Dolphins, thus 1 kickoff return for 47 yards, and 2 interception returns for 45 yards. Now, they didn't have any punt return yards, but the Bucs did. 2 of those punts averaged 27 yards, while the rest of the yards come from the kickoff at 75 through 3 Miami Dolphin kickoffs. They returned the ball 75 yards. And this was a little shocking here. The red zone for the Dolphins, they converted once, but they could not convert another 2 times out of the 3 chances. They are 33% in the red zone in there. Buccaneers weren't much better. They had 2 chances. They converted on those 2 chances for the red zone. They tried to convert the 3rd chance they got in the red zone, but they could not convert. 67%. They tried to convert on goal-to-goal efficiency, and just actually like the Dolphins, did convert, but could not convert on the 2nd chance. So they did convert like the Miami Dolphins did on goal-to-goal efficiency the first time. Could not convert the 2nd time. All right, let's get a little bit of the Sunday's action in from Week 17 in the NFL season, as it's time to get ready for Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Atlanta, Georgia, LA Rams, Atlanta Falcons. That's the final Monday Night Football game of the regular season. Kickoff just an hour, 15 minutes away as we approach closer to 8 o'clock. Let's talk about Christmas, aka Triple Hitter Thursday, which featured at the game time start matchups between the Dallas Cowboys, who are 30-23 victors over the Washington Commanders at a record now 7-8-1 heading into week 18. Meanwhile, the Commanders 4-11, hoping to go to 5-11. They lost. They go to 4-12 for next week with a loss to the. We mentioned the Detroit Lions. We mentioned the Broncos. Well, actually, we didn't talk about the Lions, but we did talk about the Broncos. They fight hard at Arrowhead Field to take it against the Kansas City Chiefs, 2013, despite a lengthy first quarter of which nothing was scored but field goals. Never lived that one down. Arrowhead's Kansas City Chiefs, for the first time since 2015, of course, they're eliminated. They find themselves heading into next week to finish the season with a record of hopefully 7-9. I should say 7-10. They fall to the now 13-3 Broncos, who hand the Chiefs their 10th loss of the regular season. They are 6-10 heading into week 18. Meanwhile, down in Viking territory, the Vikings make a Christmas afternoon in Minnesota at US Bank Stadium, Minneapolis, worth remembering, as they beat the Lions 20-10 and improved to 8-8 with a victory over the Minnesota Vikings. Not in the cards. They go to 8-8 as well, with the loss of 23-10 in favor of Minnesota. Down in Packer Nation, the Packers fight hard, but it's the Ravens with the win, and it's the 8-8 Ravens going up against a team like the Steelers, who saw Lambeau Field's Green Bay Packers of 8-6-1 go to 9-6-1 with a 41-24 beatdown from the Ravens in Lambeau. The Ravens 40 and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have a big one this week. Speaking of big, let's talk about, before we get into the game balls of the game, and we'll start with the current week, week 17, with the Buccaneers and the Dolphins. No victory speech for this one, but maybe we'll get one before we get to Dolphins season and review. That will be when the last game goes down, which will be between a team we've talked about for most of this show, the Patriots. That's the next game for the Dolphins, in case anyone wants to know. The Cleveland Browns and the Dog Pound take care of business against the Steelers, who were at 9-8, but they fall to 9-7 with a Ravens win at 8. It is a battle for not just the division, but the playoff spot as well, as the Steelers fall to a now 4-12 Cleveland Browns, who beat the Steelers 13-6 in Huntington Bank Field, Cleveland, Ohio, or as the NFL calls it, the Dog Pound. And speaking of the Patriots, since they are the next and final team the Dolphins will face this regular season, let's talk about their match against the 3-12 Jets, now 3-13 Jets, heading into Buffalo. They take on a 12-3 Patriots team, hoping to go 13-3 and a chance to win the AFC East title from the Bills. They take it 42-10. All they need is a loss from Buffalo. Did they get it? Well, yes, they did. We all know that. But the Eagles had to sweat for it. Thomas, they literally led the first half. How did they sweat for it? Think of the last quarter. Buffalo was this close, New England fans, if you're asking. They were this close to winning the game against the defending Super Bowl champions. The Eagles were this close to losing the game. A 2-point conversion success, and the game is Buffalo's, which means you two teams have to battle it out against the Jets. Easy win, Buffalo, right? Versus the Dolphins. Easy win, Patriots, right? It's basically the Bills versus the Patriots as the Jets, and the Patriots versus the Bills as the Dolphins this week. Had both teams won. Now, of course, New England won. Buffalo lost. Had both teams won, just hear me out, it would be the Buffalo Dolphins versus the New England Patriots, and the Buffalo Bills versus the New England Jets in a race for the AFC East title, which would be undecided, meaning it would come down to one team, one game, one job, and one loss. One loss by Buffalo, and the Patriots, bam, they are AFC East champions next week, heading into the playoffs. One loss by New England, and bam, back to the AFC East champions we go in Highmark Stadium for one last hurrah before the Buffalo Bills enter the new Highmark Stadium. Unfortunately for them, the one last hurrah will have to be battled for in the playoffs if they do end up facing the Patriots in the next week, which is the last week of the season. As far as game balls of the game go for me on this one, I really like Baker Mayfield's play. He's one game ball of the game for me. It's time now for our game balls of the game, and we're going to start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Miami Dolphins game. We'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals game balls of the game and give you one game ball of the game for the Dolphins there as well. I do think, though, Baker Mayfield, and I know he knows this, and I know a lot of you fans out there for Buccaneers know this as well, that the interceptions, you got to work on those a little bit, but he has been in this game. He knows the game very well. I still think there's a lot left in him. 33-44 completion attempts, 2 touchdowns, 346 yards. Good enough for my game ball of the game. And also, got to talk about his running. That's another reason he's game ball of the game. Look at that 16-yard run. The longest yardage he had on the 3 rush attempts, 11. The only guy better than him was Irving. It was Blake Irving, Bucky Irving, I should say, with 19 yards. The longest yardage for him, 12 yards. Which reminds me, he's the second game ball of the game for myself there. But what about Mike Evans? Some people call him the Miami Dolphin killer. Some people will say this guy just does what he has to do to win the game, and he does. Look at this. 7 targets, 3 receptions, 31 yards, 16 yards, the longest run he's done. And one of those yardages that he did, he got a touchdown. Perfect for a game ball of the game. And speaking of touchdowns, how about Chris Godwin? Honestly, what can this guy do? 8 targets, 7 receptions, 108 yards, 59 yards complete in his longest yards. Have a day, Chris Godwin. Have a day. Those are my game balls of the game. Let me know what your game balls of the game are. Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans are my game balls of the game. Runner up to S. Tucker. I thought he had a really interesting game. Just got to maybe kind of get a little bit more yardage there. Maybe get a little bit more yardage. Kind of get a little more yard. And what about the Dolphins? Well, I mean, hey, look, no disrespect to Quinn E. He was good, and he was also good in Cincinnati. That's why he's a game ball of the game for me in Cincinnati's game. But no disrespect. I just thought Devon Achane had a really better game. 83 yards, longest yardage, 18 yards. Yeah, he didn't get a touchdown on this one, but he did have 18 attempts to do it. Maybe eliminate those chances on the rush, and maybe he gets more yards to get more attempts on the ground. That's my first game ball of the game, Devon Achane. And I also did like Washington's performance, 3 targets, 1 reception, 4 yards. But I think he could have did a lot better than T.W. Jr. with 1 target, 1 reception for 63 yards. That was a really good run. And his longest yardage, 63. That's only about the biggest amount of yardage you'll get. What about Ollie Gordon? Yeah, what about Ollie Gordon? He wasn't a part of this, guys. Well, I mean, he's there. He's there somewhere. I'm sure he was a part of it. Maybe not on the sheet this time. He's definitely a game ball of the game to look at. What about Jalen Waddle? That was a good one to look at as well. Jay Hill, 2 targets, 1 reception, 16 yards. All right, I think I'm satisfied. Let's go with Jay Hill, T.U. Jr. from Washington, Devon Achane as your Dolphin game balls of the game for the game in which the Dolphins win. They win 20-17 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And get ready for a matchup that's going to be quite the fun one against the New England Patriots. What fun it will be at 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time. What fun it will be there. Game is in Gillette Stadium, Foxborough, and that one takes place on the 4th of January in the new year. What fun it will be to get to the end of this one. That is the last game for the Miami Dolphins at home, which was this one, the current week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The last road game is in Gillette Stadium in Foxborough as the Patriots take on their last AFC division rival of the East in the New England Patriots. Last time these guys met, the Patriots beat them. Meanwhile, for the Bucs, their next opponent, we take you to Carolina for an 8-8 Panthers team taking on, we said it before and we'll say it again, the 7-9 Buccaneers. They will take on the Carolina Panthers. Last time the Panthers and the Bucs met, the Carolina Panthers beat the Buccaneers 23-20. Will there be a changing of the guard on January 3rd, 2026 in Week 18 at 4:30 p.m. Eastern? We'll see. Bucs, Panthers, 4:30, January 3rd, 2026. Sure to be a fun one. And nevertheless, while the Bengals were playing and the Dolphins were playing the Bucs, before we get to the Bengals and Dolphin game balls of the game, which will follow our final timeout of the program coming up after we reveal the final match for the Bengals. Their last match was a match against the Arizona Cardinals and the Cincinnati Bengals. They would win that game and go to a record of 6-10 before the regular season finale against the Cleveland Browns in home field, and that one will be on the 4th of January 2026 when they go to Paycor Stadium and take care of the dog pound, the Cleveland Browns. Kickoffs at 1 p.m. Eastern in Paycor Stadium. So the Bengals continue home despite Quinn E., Mike McDaniel, and the Miami Dolphins losing to them 45-21, and then down in Tampa Bay, the Buccaneers fell to the Dolphins 20-17 this last week. They fell to the Buccaneers 2017, the final score in favor of the Dolphins. Their next matchup against Carolina when we return to Dolphins post game for the final time. I will get you the game balls of Cincinnati and Dolphins. We will talk about week 18, and you've waited this long. We will talk about the playoff picture. That next when Dolphin Post Game continues on Sports for Beginners and on the ice and behind the benches.
Cincinnati Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on Cincinnati Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on Cincinnati Radio.
All right, everybody, welcome back into Dolphin Post Game. The double dose of games we have recap from week 16 to now week 17 are in the books. We'll get to Cincinnati and Miami's game balls of the game. Just a reminder, though, as we look at our 18th week schedule, the final week of the regular season. All the action gets going on January 3rd, this Saturday, following New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, with the Buccaneers leading the charge against the Panthers in Raymond James Stadium, Tampa Bay, Florida. That's right. It's the 8-8 Panthers taking on the 7-9 Buccaneers. And then late Saturday night at 8 p.m., we've got the Seahawks in town against the 49ers of San Francisco down in Levi Stadium, St. Clara, California. 49ers Seahawks. Going to be a fun one there, I can tell, as it is the 13-3 Seattle Seahawks take on the 12-4 San Francisco 49ers. That follows the game at 4:30 against the Bucs and the Panthers. Into Sunday we go, the final Sunday of the regular season on January the 4th. And that is going to be a fun one in and of itself as the Bengals take on the Browns. It's the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Browns in an AFC clash between the Dog Pound Browns of 4-12 and the 6-10 Cincinnati Bengals. 6-10 Bengals versus 4-12 Browns. That's going to be a fun one. Kickoff at 1 p.m. Eastern in Paycor Stadium, Cincinnati, Ohio. Meanwhile, down in MetLife Stadium, it's the Dallas Cowboys taking on the G-Man Giants of New York. Kickoff at 1 p.m. Also around 1 p.m., the Packers are at U.S. Bank Stadium, Minneapolis, Minnesota, to take on the Minnesota Vikings in U.S. Bank Stadium. Into NRG Stadium, Houston we go, where the Texans will take on the Colts of Indianapolis. See also the Saints take on Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Atlanta, Georgia, the Atlanta Falcons, as the Falcons host the Saints of the New Orleans Saints. Tennessee Titans are in town this week at Everbank Stadium between the Jacksonville Jaguars and Jacksonville, Florida. Kickoff for all the 1 o'clock games at 1 p.m. on Sunday. Your 4 o'clock slate includes the Lions and Bears at 4:25. Also around 4:25, get the Cardinals and the Rams. The Chiefs are in Allegiant Stadium against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Broncos are in Mile High Denver, Colorado against the Chargers. Bills host the Jets. Patriots host the Dolphins, and the Commanders, well, they're taking on the defending Super Bowl champions, the Eagles, at Lincoln Financial Field, Philadelphia. And who else to wrap up this season series of 2025 NFL action for your Sunday dinner? But the Steelers at Acrisure Stadium, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's the Ravens and Lamar versus Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens versus Rodgers and the Steelers. Rodgers, Jackson, Steelers, Ravens. Kickoff 8:20. Don't miss it. Trust me, you won't want to. And that's it for week 18. Oh boy, it's going to be a little harder to get to when we get to the final pieces of this show, which we are at right now. But let's get the game balls out of the way before we get there. So Joe Burrow, Joe Flacco against Quinn E. You have Devon Chain. You have Joe Burrow. You have T.J. Brooks, I believe is the name. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins in this one. And you've got Mike Gesicki. I'm going to start with the Dolphins on this one. Now, obviously, Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins have been going through, a lot. They're tanking. They're throwing games. Oh, now they're winning games. Okay, so they have a chance? Well, we all do. They didn't have a chance, and all that negativity that surrounds the Dolphins. I'll save that for the season in review to talk about. But I actually thought that M. Washington, Ollie Gordon, Devon Chain, and yeah, give it to him. Give it to him. C. Wilson Jr. I thought they had really good games. They are game balls of the game material for me. I like Devon Chain's appearance on the receiving end. 3 targets, 3 receptions, 9 yards. Would have preferred more yards from Devon Chain in this game, but okay. C. Wilson, 1 target, 11 yards. Would have preferred more. M. Washington, I love the yardage there. I would have preferred more yards, like maybe 40 yards and 23 be the longest yardage, but 1 target, 1 reception. You take what you get. Oh, yes. I actually tell you he was better on the ground with the 9 yards and the 1 attempt on the ground. And to be honest, I thought Devon Chain did better on the ground than he did in the passing game. Way better. Quinn E., you learn from your mistakes, and that's what you did in the game this week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In the game last week, you learned from those interceptions. You didn't throw any interceptions. You threw touchdowns, but I'll give you credit where credit is due. 20 completion attempts out of the 30 passing attempts you got. There you go. That's got to count for something. Those are my game balls of the game. Quinn E., based on his completion attempts of Quinn E., with his completion attempts. Ollie Gordon, I thought he had a really good one. Got to work on the rushing, but the passing was pretty good for receiving. M. Washington was also pretty good. He's got an honorable mention for me in the game balls. C. Wilson Jr. had a pretty good one as well. And what about Jalen Waddle? I thought Waddle had probably the best game on the receiving end than everybody combined. 72 yards. 5 receptions, 9 targets. Great job by him. Those are the game balls of the game. A little bit of a runner-up, but that's okay. All right. Joe Burrow, Joe Flacco. There's a lot I could say about both guys. I do think, though, Joe Burrow had a better game. Now, Joe Flacco did make 1 completion and, of course, did make 1 attempt for 4 yards. But I personally would take the 309 yards with 4 touchdowns and 25 completions out of 32. That's a little bit debatable for me for Joe Burrow, but good enough for my game ball of the game in that one. I did like T.J. Brooks. I think it's T.J. Brooks. I'm not sure. Maybe it's Trevor Brooks. 4 attempts on the ground, 7 yards rushing, 3 being his longest yards. Good enough for my game ball of the game. What about T. Higgins? 3 targets, 3 receptions, 23 yards. 35 yards being his longest. Oh, and yeah, the touchdown. He was a good one as well. That's another game ball of the game. So there we go. We got Joe Burrow, Trevor Brooks, or TJ Brooks, whatever however you say that person's name, T. Brooks. T. Higgins is also one of them. And you know what, Miami fans, you're going to hate me for this, but I thought Mike Gesicki had a good game against us. 4 targets, 3 receptions, 35 yards. remember, he got a touchdown, and 17 was his longest yards. I thought that was a really good job by Mike Gesicki. I really like how Mike Gesicki played. I love how T. Higgins played. And let's add one more game ball in there. Jamar Chase, 3 targets, 3 receptions, 109 yards, 36 yards, his longest yardage. Great job by him, Jamar Chase. This guy can do almost everything he puts his mind to. But hey, that's football for you, folks, and I credit him for it. Dolphins fans, I know we're sad about the loss last week against the Bengals, but we should be happy about this week's win for the, I believe, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I think there's a lot to be happy about for Cincinnati and their head coach. Despite being eliminated this season, Zach Taylor and his team put up an interesting finish to the regular season. Yes, it didn't go their way. I know. Guys, I know how you are feeling about that. But when you really look at it, they put up a strong finish. And that's all you could do. They beat a team who has been without Kyler Murray since literally Kyler Murray's injury that he's sustained. All right. Were they good games? Yes. Were they entertaining games? Well, for the Dolphin fans, the game against the Cincinnati Bengals could have been done better if they wanted to get the win. But this one, of course, against the Buccaneers was pretty good against Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield in particular. Would I have liked to see Tua play against Baker Mayfield? Yeah, I definitely would have. It would have been a pretty good one to watch. I'd watch it. I don't know if you guys would. Let's wrap this up with the playoff finish. Now, this is it. This is the last chance for the teams that still have not even hit the playoffs. It's the last chance. Last chance. Can they do it? Is the question. Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers, both without a playoff spot, are aiming for their division. They are fighting in a division that was basically theirs to lose. They had Cincinnati, they had Cleveland, but those teams did not show up to, put up a win. But hey, you win some, you lose some. This was ultimately the Ravens division to lose. And right now, the AFC North still up for grabs. You've got the Steelers and you've got the Ravens on Sunday night finale football in the 2025 regular season. Honestly, I say it's too good for them. Heck, it would shock me, but not really, if this game went into OT. On the other side of the coin, in the AFC, you have teams like the Patriots. Not only are they in the playoffs, but they also clinch the division against the team that's behind them, the Buffalo Bills. And now, of course, at the very bottom, you have our team that we're covering, the Miami Dolphins. And, of course, the team at the very bottom of the barrel that's taking on the Jets at 13-3. 13-3 being the loss, 13 losses, 3 wins. 9-7 Steelers take on the 8-8 Ravens on Sunday night finale football this Sunday in week 18 of the NFL season. And everywhere else, you have in Texans, Jacksonville, out, Indianapolis, out, Tennessee Titans. These teams, the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans, are out of the AFC South. You would have thought that the AFC South would actually be the Indianapolis Colts' division to win, given the hot start they got. Unfortunately, not the case. Kansas City, first time since 2015 that they have been eliminated from playoff contention. Las Vegas, out as well. In the Chargers and Denver has the division in the North. For the NFC, you've got the Bears, the Packers, the Vikings, and the Lions. Carolina, Tampa Bay, still without a playoff spot. Going to be a fun one there to watch on Saturday. Ultimately, folks, you've got really good matchups in Week 18. You've got really good ones. You've got the now number 1 seed and waiting to see what happens between the 7th, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 6th, the 5th, the 4th seed in the AFC between the Patriots, the Bills, Chargers, Jacksonville, Steelers, Texans, who will face the Broncos as the number 1 only seed that have the first round bye, almost locked up tight. On the other side, you've got the Seahawks, 13-3 against the 9-6-1 Packers, 11-5 Bears, 11-5 Eagles, 11-4 Rams, 12-4 49ers, or 6-8 Panthers as it stands. It could be the Buccaneers. So the Panthers are on big game watch no matter what happens this week. It is literally they have to beat the Buccaneers if they want to remain in the playoffs. If they lose, they're done. I kind of think that the Panthers dug themselves into a hole for the playoffs. I don't like the idea of facing a 12-4 49ers team. I don't like it, guys. I don't like it. It doesn't seem promising. This might be a must-win game for them. They might have to suck it up and just take it against the Bucs. I do feel that the Bucs win, Texans are gone. But 49ers are out. Like if the Texans win, the Bucs win against the Panthers, yeah, the Panthers are gone, but I feel like it'll be a problem for the 49ers. I don't know if the 49ers will be able to beat such a team like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are clicking at the right time, and I think it's win or go home for the 49ers, no matter who they face. Whether they do face the Panthers, I think they have a better shot. But if they face the Buccaneers, I don't know if that's a good idea. Ultimately, these final games in Week 18 decide the playoff seeding. I'm not really sure about how I feel with the 49ers. They might have wanted to dodge this playoff bullet that was shot with them this season. I do think the Rams are in trouble against the Eagles. I don't think that's changing. I will be shocked, however, if the Eagles get beat by the Rams and do not see Super Bowl 60 in a chance to get a two-time defending Philadelphia Eagle Super Bowl championship parade. It's even tougher when you consider Lambeau Field versus Chicago. You've got a team that has the head coach, rather one of the team coaches of the Detroit Lions, now on the team and as the coach of the Chicago Bears. And he has made his name and presence felt. I won't say the coach's name because we know who it is by now, but I do think this is the Bears' year. I think this is the Bears' year. If there's anyone in the NFC right now that can do it, I think the Bears might have it this year. They've got a tough opponent in Seattle, sure, but I think Seattle will have to play smart in the postseason if they end up playing the Bears, because it looks like a trap game. If the Bears end up playing Seattle, it looks like a trap game. This happened with the Commanders last season, and you had a team that was so high and mighty, they thought they could take down any team they faced, and they got that team, and look what happened. They failed. Well, they failed, but they lost embarrassingly. Green Bay might be the team to beat in the NFC. They might be one of the teams that Chicago just has to beat. And then basically every other team, to me, is kind of a cakewalk. The Eagles, tough. Yes, definitely a tough one. But the Bears, they might be a team the Eagles don't see coming, the Panthers don't see coming, or even the Bucs don't see coming. Seattle, they might see them coming. Seattle fans, be glued to your screen if you're watching the Bears games this playoff season, because the Bears are going to be a team that I think will take the NFC by storm. That may be a bold prediction right now, but I think it's the Bears' year. I think it's their year. I think they might do it this year. I really do. Then you come against your Super Bowl opponent, and that's the AFC. The only teams that I see are problems are between the Steelers, who, if they face Buffalo, they're gone. Sorry, Steeler fans. I don't know if you face the Steelers, if you face Buffalo, especially in the AFC Championship game, if that's even worth it. Then you have the Chargers versus the Jaguars. Yeah, sorry, Jaguars. You have to win next week for better seating. I don't think playing against the Chargers is a good idea. You probably have a better shot at beating the Texans than beating the Chargers. I don't think the Chargers are a good team to face. Patriots, it's kind of the Chiefs-Bills game, I think. Now, the Chiefs are not in the playoffs, so I can't really use that narrative to talk about it, but just look at it this way. You have a team who hasn't been in the playoffs since literally Tom Brady era football. I think the Patriots are a scary team, Bills Mafia. I think this could be the Patriots' year. They'll just have to get by the Denver Broncos, and then it's pretty much gone in their favor. Again, it could be a bold prediction, but I think they're the team to beat. Now, as per if they make it to the Super Bowl, it would kind of be a matchup worth watching for next season previews because to me, I think Patriots versus Bears, like I think it's Bears' year. I think it literally is the Bears' year. Now, don't quote me on it if it happens, but I think the Bears and the Patriots would be an amazing Super Bowl matchup. It would get all those people who are saying it's probably not going to be a good Super Bowl, it's going to be a boring playoffs, saying, who are these teams? Why are they so good? Whereas on the other hand, we're also saying about time a team got to the Super Bowl and made a classic out of it. And I think the team to make the classic is the Patriots. Now, the Broncos, yeah, they're the number one. Yeah, they're the number one seed, but unless they get by the Patriots or they get by the Jaguars or whoever they play, I'm not. It might be a bit of a stretch for the Broncos, Dolphin fans. Might be a bit of a stretch for them. Since we'll be watching as off-season team, it might be a bit of a stretch for them to win. Now, granted, they haven't won since the Eli Manning days or the Peyton Manning days of the Denver Broncos, but I don't know. Bo Nix, I don't know. Broncos fans, I really don't know. It looks like a tight one. And that'll do it here for us on Dolphin Post Game. We will talk about the playoff picture and the playoffs in general on the final edition of Dolphins Post Game. We'll even keep you posted on Dolphins season in review, only available on Sports for Beginners, happening the minute the last game goes final for Dolphins this season. But if you've enjoyed Dolphins football here on Sports for Beginners and on the ice and behind the benches, please let us know how you feel about it. And as for now, until we see the Patriots and the Dolphins final score, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for joining us on Dolphin Post Game this season. My name is Thomas McGregor. Have yourselves a blessed Week 18 and enjoy. If you are tuning into Monday Night Football's action, watching the wrap-up between your Monday Night Football contenders, the LA Rams and the Atlanta Falcons. It's the 11-4 Rams versus the 6-9 Atlanta Falcons. Click like if you like what you're listening to. Click subscribe if you really like it so you never miss an episode. Tell all your friends. Dolphins pick up a win and lose one in Week 16 and then Week 17. I'm out until Dolphins Patriots goes final, Week 18 in 2026. See you then, and fins up.
Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginners podcast8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.